can press the record button. There we go. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the West Midlands Meet the Regulators week. This morning we've got Catherine Sargerson from Coventry City Council talking about environmental health. Just normal Teams meeting rules apply if you can. So leaving your camera off unless you're wanting to talk, but please raise your hand, use the chat to ask questions so we can make it as interactive as we can, even though it's all virtual. But thank you very much, Kay, for volunteering to do this session this morning. And I'll pass over to you to tell us all about the role of environmental health.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Stuart. Just to let you know, there may be some rustling in the background. I much prefer doing presentations in person, and I have my slides, but I also have some notes. So apologies for any rustling of papers. As Stuart said, my name's Catherine. I work at Coventry City Council Environmental Health as an environmental health officer and have for a number of years. I thoroughly enjoy my job as an environmental health officer. The diversity of work is exciting. It enables you to work across a variety of areas or specialise in one that becomes a passion. There are few jobs that provide the opportunity to engage with people, whether it be members of the public or businesses, partners in such diverse circumstances. Frequently, you do not know what the day will bring, what you'll be involved with and who you'll get to engage. So environmental health at Coventry follows the One Coventry approach, which sits across all that we do in the council. So to just put that into the framework, we're working together to improve people's lives by being globally connected and locally committed. And then from this core statement, our values and behaviours flow across the whole of the City Council. Environmental health within Coventry is split into 2 main areas. And of course, how this works with other local authorities can be very different. Historically, we would have had it probably in one work stream, but now in Coventry, we've got it with regulatory services and planning, and the functions of those sit beneath it are food, health and safety, housing and pollution. And then with our environmental services section, we've got environmental crime, domestic noise, and then our dog wardens. There's some other bits that sit in there as well, but not so linked to our environmental health function. So that just demonstrates where we are with Coventry, but as I said, other local authorities can have a different steer on how it's broken down. So what is and what do we mean by environmental health? The next slide is one that I took from a CIH, which is the Chartered Institute of Environmental Health, which just describes what environmental health is. It encompasses all of the external factors that affect human health and well-being, so is extremely broad, and then includes the air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, and the places we live and work. So you can see from that it is everything, really. Environmental health covers a whole range. So where does environmental health sit with other things that occur? So environmental health works with external partners. So for example, the police work with environmental health and licensing, for example, with regards to premises safety, events, noise nuisance. Fire works with environmental health for safety in businesses, private rented accommodation. We also work with internal organisations such as the BID, HSE, and then other departments such as BES and the OPSS. So there's a whole raft of things that we do externally, and then internally, the council departments, we work with building control, for example, with large events, putting up temporary structures, say at the Coventry Building Society arena. Licensing, we've got close links with, because we work with them with regards to retail shops, restaurants, pubs, and there's a crossover with food safety. They also issue temporary event notices, and then environmental health is what's called a responsible authority for licensing. Public health, you can understand over the last couple of years, then our links with them have broadened with regards to the pandemic, but we've also worked with them for things like Legionella outbreaks or instances of tuberculosis. And then we have business development that we do work with across the intelligence and the links that we have, and trading standards. We do food standards, and that will link across with regards to allergen management. So that just sets the scene with regards to where environmental health sits with regards to other functions, both internally and externally. So if we just go through what areas in environmental health cover. So first of all, housing. Within Coventry, the property licensing team works and impacts directly on the health and well-being of citizens, in particular those in rented or houses of multiple occupation. It's important to create a sustainable and healthy rented sector, and it's a key objective for the team. And they recognise that the services provided contribute toward improving health inequalities and create a healthy standard of living for all. So with these two streams, we've got housing enforcement and property licensing. And the property licensing section is one that has grown within Coventry, given the fact that there's been an increase in the private rented sector. And the standards of those need to be brought up to a level to ensure that people have a decent place to live. With environmental services, which is a separate section, it encompasses a range of different areas. We've got our neighbourhood enforcement within there. We've got monitoring and response service, which deals with our CCTV. We've got pest control and animal welfare. And of course, pest control can, of course, link across to our food businesses. We often have contacts between the two there. And then we've got street enforcement, which is a wide scope, and including things like environmental crime, nuisance, drainage, noise nuisance, and fly tipping. And currently within Coventry, waste is a very topical issue. We also deal with gypsy encampments. So again, the breadth of environmental services is broad. Within another section, we have pollution. This encompasses more of our commercial noise. And we've noticed within Coventry during the pandemic that our noise complaints have increased. Of course, we've got more people working at home, and then they've got the expectation of a quieter environment. And there's the link of the stress and anxiety caused by COVID. We noticed that when things were moving from in and out of the lockdown restrictions, that we had more events being planned, pubs and clubs were reopening, attracting customers. Lots of these were being held outside. So our noise team was involved with managing and trying to resolve the complaints, and where necessary, enforcement was required to be used. A further section, which is a broad area, and the managing and improving of air quality is a continuing aim for councils, and this requires policies to be adopted to initiate change over a long period of time. How air quality is managed is dependent on a lot of the systems that you put in place, which will take a long time to evolve and change, but working on plans to reduce nitrogen dioxide levels by introducing electric bus fleets, making sure that there's better improved cycling and walking, all falls within that aspect of environmental health. It can move to more domestic uses with regards to wood burning stoves, which have become more popular, and then promoting the use of correct fuels to reduce the particulates going into the environment. One area that people will be more familiar with within environmental health is food and health and safety. So this is an area that we've mentioned just previously with regard to how it links into our other sections with regards to licensing, pest control, and our offices are often extremely busy with the businesses within Coventry. So within food safety, we're responsible for inspecting all of the food businesses within the local authority, and it can include a range. We've got pubs, cafes, schools, staff canteens, our takeaways and retail food businesses. These are done on a risk rated basis, so businesses will be scored and then they are given a food hygiene rating if they're involved in the scheme. Within food safety, we also have to do investigations of things like suspected food poisonings, where we might have complaints about food hygiene standards in a food business, which may have changed ownership, for example, and the standards may have dropped. We also link into infectious disease notifications, which again pulls back to our public health colleagues. We provide export certificates to businesses exporting certain foods outside the UK. And of course, this work will have increased with the Brexit changes that have come in, with the recognition that we've got a different kind of regulatory environment with in relationship to Europe. We also enforce the food law and investigate complaints from members of the public that come in. So our current situation within food safety is that we've got a backlog of inspections due to the pandemic. This is because we had the lockdown period, so officers weren't able to go out. We have got a recovery plan which is linked to the Food Standards Agency, and this is to prioritise inspections. As I said, inspections are based on a risk-based programme, and therefore we'll look to track and tackle those on the highest risk inspections. We have found, of course, that while officers haven't been out and about as frequently, there has been a drop in standards at some of the food businesses across the city, and officers are working within the team to follow up any complaints or visits that are needed, and also link into serving notices where appropriate. And as mentioned previously, there has been the increased demand for export health certificates following Brexit. One of the things that we've been doing is some project work to link into our food safety to help balance the challenges that have come over the last 2 years. And we've done a triage project to contact businesses to try and assess where they are and their understanding of their business, because we've had a lot of new food businesses come in. Those have then been triaged, and we've got a system from the responses that will give it a red, amber or green. We can then provide our team with some businesses that are deemed higher risk and therefore prioritise our inspection. Also, this process has enabled us to map out where our businesses are operating and may no longer be trading, as we had a lot of new businesses coming into the sector during the lockdown period, and people were being furloughed, opening businesses, but then they haven't survived that period and are no longer operating. Coventry currently is also the City of Culture. And with that, we've been able to bring in an additional compliance officer to work alongside and support both new and existing businesses. So this just provides some coaching, some understanding for those new business providers of what they need to meet with regards to the regulatory controls. And then also assist in making sure that their food hygiene standards are raised, and in that it can raise their food hygiene rating score. As well as the City of Culture, we've got the Commonwealth Games operating shortly, which is across a whole range of local authorities led by Birmingham. So we're working to host some of those events, and as I said, that's linking into Birmingham City Council. And we're also working to identify any key venues that we'll need to visit to ensure there's compliance with food safety regulations. Health and safety. So health and safety is another busy area within environmental health, and we work within the city to ensure that that the health and safety within businesses is safe. So we work alongside the health and safety executive with different enforcement responsibilities on the types of businesses. We investigate accidents in the workplace, and these accidents can range from fairly minor ones to some serious to some fatalities. We've got skin piercers, which range from tattooists to microbladers. So there's a wealth of work that links into the beauty sector on that side. And again, there's some emerging challenges with regards to new beauty practices that are ongoing. And that illustrates how adaptable the environmental health function is and needs to adapt to and react to challenges. With regard to what we're undertaking in health and safety currently, we've got some key projects. One of our projects links to our City of Culture, and we've set up a hotel project. Within Coventry, we've got a range of hotel standards. We go from some big name branded ones to some independents, some of which have a very poor history of compliance, and therefore to meet the needs of customers coming into the city for things like the City of Culture and the Commonwealth Games, we were working with accommodation providers to raise the standards in some instances. We're looking to provide a toolkit to send out to those businesses so they have a whole range of regulatory information provided in there to assist them in raising their standards. It always still surprises me that we get a lot of complaints coming in about some of our poorer performing hotels, but if they'd looked at the travel advisor site beforehand, you probably wouldn't have booked them. We want to change that round to have all of our hotels within Coventry somewhere that people would want to stay and not have a poor experience. Another major project that's happened over this year has been with regards to window restrictors in hotels. There was the loss of a 5-year-old asylum seeker in Sheffield who fell from a window, and Coventry also has a previous incidence of a child losing their life from falling from a window. So with this knowledge and the past experience of Coventry, we adapted a project and went out to all of our hotels to check compliance. It was highlighted that there was a number of issues within our hotels, and we noted that also some of our accommodation being used for asylum seekers meant that things like window restrictors were being broken because people were being asked to self-isolate in the hotels. So therefore making sure that the checks and management of that kind of issue was brought to the knowledge of the owners, and in some instance we were required to serve legal notices. Some prohibition notices were served on rooms above the first floor, and then improvement notices were served. The improvement notices were to ensure that the management and checks were in place so that if there were any things like broken window restrictors, they were checked in a regular way and then maintained and put back in operation for those rooms that we'd taken out. Another link that has happened with regards to the City of Culture has been in regards to our event safety. So we have had the City of Culture and it's run between May 21 and May 22. And of course, there's been a lot of events. We've had to adapt with regard to the fact that the pandemic has also been during this period of time. But to give an example, in July to September, there were over 100 events in 52 days. So across our environmental health teams, linking into licensing and then, as I said, into building control, we had to have a system to make sure all our partners were able to manage that volume of events. And in doing that, Coventry has come up with an event classification matrix that pulls together all of the agencies such as the police, local authority and the event organisers. This means that we can look at the elements within each event and then score them through different things like their licensable activity, whether there could be crime and disorder, whether there be any traffic issues and the time of the event. So that then has meant that we have now got a matrix and it can determine the type of events, whether it falls from the scoring as a major event, a large event, a medium or small. And this will then fall into whether a SAG is required. A SAG is a overarching safety advisory group which provides information to the event organisers and links into all of the partner agencies. And it can help inform event organisers. But what we were finding with that concentration of 52 events in 100 days, that the availability of bringing those all to a SAG would not be possible. So we have provided information to events depending on their size and their complexities. We then will be able to bring those into a SAG if required, but also because there's a documentation process, we're able to flexibly assess whether we'd need to bring an event to the SAG. And then this provides regulators and businesses and the event organisers a transparent and supportive way of covering their events within this year of the City of Culture. And I think we're just about to go into another period of time where we've got lots of events coming into the city. So in conclusion, as I've said, Coventry has an environmental health team which is broad, as with all local authorities. Environmental health works at pace. We're flexible and adaptable and able to react to challenges and have an immediate but proportionate response. We work in a holistic and connected way with regards to who else is involved with our partner organisations, the businesses themselves, other areas of the local authority. And as I've shown through the presentation, you can see that environmental health falls out and into all areas of our lives. It has a protection of everyone, everywhere, every day. There's that breadth of what we do and means that we're involved in people's daily lives. We use a risk-based approach, which means that we can change and meet changing circumstances and can be applied to all work areas, which then means it will link into what other elements are occurring within local authority or partner organisations. We work collaboratively across the council priorities, utilising our environmental health function, which will balance and benefit and improve lives of our communities. That collaborative working within priority areas is going to be important moving forward, given the types of businesses and the numbers of public in the variety of areas that environmental health covers. It'll be beneficial for us to be involved in what is occurring moving on. So if we consider our roles going forward, environmental health has demonstrated, especially over the past 2 years, how it can step up to new challenges in a situation that's never been experienced before in our lifetime. Looking forward, environmental health needs to be proactive in considering the challenges and changes on the horizon and plan how we can work collaboratively with all to address regulatory change, technology advances, and protect the health and well-being of everyone through protecting our planet. So thank you very much for listening. If you've got any questions, I'm sure Stuart will be able to put them through to us. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Catherine. That's a really great summary of some of the work of environmental health. And I know from personal experience working with environmental health officers, it is the scope of the work that not only keeps it interesting, but challenging as well. One of the areas that I don't think you touched on particularly was when you have environmental health officers that deal with health and safety. Is that just something you can sort of touch on as we're finishing?
So environmental health and the safety aspect of what we do with regards to, say, accidents, that type of thing. So yes, we have a very broad remit with regards to that. As I said, it can be split between health and safety and environmental health depending on the type of environment. So within environmental health, health and safety, we cover things like warehouses, offices, retail premises like that. And our health and safety remit can deal with some quite serious incidents. I've had dealings with forklift truck accidents with pallets falling down on people. We've had a fatality in Coventry in the last few years, and they then mean that our resources within the city council have to be shifted and reactive with regards to what's occurring there. So it shows how environmental health has to be ready almost on an instantaneous, immediate basis to take up those challenges, direct resources in those ways, and then follow those through. And those can take, a lot of resource over a number of years. I think the fatality, given the fact we had to go to coroners and then we had to go to court, was a period of 3 or 4 years that whole investigation took, which then takes out people from doing other things. So we have to be very flexible in how we work and what our approach is.
Thank you. And I think it is right. It's a profession that is challenging, and people often just think of food hygiene, for example, but the breadth and variety of environmental health work, and as you say, that ability to change when something happens and actually focus resources on a fatality, for example, or as in the last couple of years being turned around to deal with business restrictions and everything else. It's a challenging but rewarding career, I think is the right kind of phrase for it.
I think you're really correct on that, and I don't think I would have stayed in this profession if it hadn't offered that variety and continual interest with regard to the types of things you get involved with. But it's not just the types of things you get involved with, it's the people that you meet on a daily basis. And you can go in to a business, influence and change behaviours which improves the situation. And I think Coventry City Council, especially over the past 2 years, environmental health team has linked into businesses, which then means that we can use that intelligence across other areas within councils and partners. And I think that's one of the things that we need to look to in the future, is that collaborative approach with regards to how we work with businesses, not always necessarily on an enforcement footing, but more with regards to how we have that business compliance and drive that forward into the wider context of what councils are doing and what we're looking to do nationally.
Yeah, and I think that's a takeaway, hopefully, for the rest of the week as well, that, yes, you are a regulator and you have powers to take people to court and things like that, but actually you're really helpful, approachable people. So any colleagues from the growth hubs, if they've got businesses, signposting them to yourselves for that business support.
Exactly, and that breadth of knowledge that is across environmental health we've touched a little bit more detail on the food and health and safety, but also with regards to noise. So when you've got businesses starting up and wanting to run a new music venue or something like that, then we've got expertise in those sectors. We've got also on our housing team side, we're doing a lot of protection with regards to people who are struggling. And if you think about the energy challenges that we've got at the moment, making sure that people have got the right boilers in place to make sure they've got insulation, all of those types of things will link through there, and that then will flow across to businesses. So we've got all of those aspects which environmental health have, all of these lines which cross over into things, and people might look at them in siloed areas, but I think it's that combination of knowledge and experience that's worth sharing, and the intelligence that we've got of businesses, their owners, what they're trying to achieve, that can then be shared in the wider context.
Yeah, that's brilliant. There's no other questions in the chat. If anyone else would like to ask Catherine a question before we end today, thank you very much, Catherine. It's been really informative, a great presentation.
Pleasure. Thank you, Stuart.
For joining. And yes, I will hopefully see you in some of the sessions later in the week. I shall put very quickly in the chat, we've got later today, I'll be hosting a session on net zero. We have a licensing officer talking about licensing work at 2 o'clock, and then a fire safety officer at 3. So hopefully some of you might find those interesting. But thank you again, Catherine. And
lovely.
Thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks very much then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.